Actually, I would get on Facebook like even 5 minutes earlier when I did stuff.
Okay, I
And
think we got it. I think we're actually on. So,
Yes, we are. We're live.
okay, a little rough start, folks, but we made it. So I am Dr. Ruth Anderson, and I am so pleased to be here with you. Today is the launch of Enlightened Women, Enlightened Youth Summit, and we did it. It's so exciting, and I am here with Deb Goldberg, and I am here with Terry Angel, and we cannot wait to bring you today's show. But there's a couple things that I want to say, first of all. First of all, thank you so much for saying yes when Spirit said, what do you think about that summit? So thank you for responding. Thank you also for checking into the Facebook group, because I think that's where a lot of the magic is going to happen. And I just got goosebumps even saying that. And when I say the magic, I mean the connection between people, because that's how Spirit can help us grow, is through connections with other people. And I know what a blessing it has been to connect with Deb and Terry here through this summit. And I feel like I've made lifelong soul sisters. And I hope that you all feel that connection with other people in this group as well. So thank you. Let me see what other notes. We're going to start our day today with a meditation and an intention that Terry's going to lead us in. But before we do that, I have a couple of quick announcements. So number one, the balloons. Archangel Michael, we're having a party here. I don't know if any of you are feeling that way, but we're having a party. And Archangel Michael suggested balloons and suggested the colors purple for Archangel Michael, white for Divine Mother, and gold for God. And so I went to our King Supers and I was asking about the balloons. Well, who knew, seriously, that there was an international helium shortage? And there really is. I had no idea. And the gal says, I don't think I have any helium left. And she goes, well, how many do you want? And I said, well, I'd really like 3. And she said, well, let me try. And I said, but if you can only do one, just do the purple one, because this entire summit has been Archangel Michael's idea and suggestion and guidance. So she does one and she goes, no, I think I can do another one. What color do you want? I said, okay, white. We're going white. And so for the Divine Mother, because today I saw her just embracing the summit and the people in the summit. So it had to be white. And then she says, okay, I think I've got room for one more, helium for one more. What would you like? I said, it's got to be gold. And so I got them. So with the international helium shortage, I have 3 balloons in celebration. So we are celebrating. The other thing that I would like to point out to you, you might think I'm overdressed. I think I'm overdressed, but the reason that I am wearing this today is because last March, I was in the mall shopping with my daughter. We went into Chico's, I don't know what it's called, one of those stores. And this coat was like screaming to me from the racks. And it was on sale. And still, I'm really frugal. I don't like spending much money on clothes for me. And so I'm looking at the coat and it's really pretty. And I hear Archangel Michael say, buy that coat. And I said, what? And he goes, buy the coat. And I thought, okay, first of all, I don't normally listen when a guy tells me how to dress. Secondly, I will never have a place to wear this. So why am I buying this? And today, when I'm, thinking about the summit and I hear, wear the coat. And I thought, okay, that's why I bought the coat back in March to wear today. And it's 85 degrees outside, but I'm wearing the coat because Archangel Michael wants a party. So I am thrilled to be wearing this coat. So I hope you don't feel underdressed. So let me see, that's the rest of my my announcements. So Terry, would you please start us out with a meditation intention for our time here together?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ruth, for asking me to do this. I am honored and so excited for the summit. So let's connect what I'd like for you to do, all of you who are hearing my voice right now, is place one hand at your heart center. Placing your hand there brings your focus to your heart. So let's all just breathe in and feel that energy going right to our heart space. Slow your breath as you breathe it in, hold it, and then breathe back out slowly. With your next breath, add in gratitude, love, care, concern, anything that feels really good to you. Breathe that in right now. As you keep that breath slow, you're centering your energy into your heart at this moment. And then what I would like for you to do is keep breathing in, keep focusing on gratitude, and raise your other hand up, because we're all going to connect. We're going to connect energetically in a huge circle. All of us that are watching this, all of us that will watch this. Let's connect together and let's set an intention for this summit. And this is the intention. And I thank Ruth for these words, and I added a few of my own in. It is our intention to sit immersed in the love of Archangel Michael and Divine Mother, so we might understand the gift that we are of embodying grace and bringing divine light into the world as we stand strong as one and stronger as a group, so that lives will be changed in a positive way and our words and stories are shared over these next 31 days. Breathe that in, breathe the energy of that intention, and especially that lives will be changed. What will be shared here will be life-changing. And the angels and the masters invite you to open your heart to the words that you are getting ready to hear from our wonderful Deb Goldberg. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it is.
Thank you, Terry. That was absolutely beautiful.
You're so welcome.
So
Thank you.
before we start the video, let's just say hey to Deb Goldberg. Deb, can you say hello?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here with all of us and sharing the love and the light. I'm so happy to be here with you today and be with Ruth and Terry and kicking off this amazing summit that's made just for everybody. Actually, it's not just for you, it's also for the speakers too. So a lot of love to be shared, and I'm so grateful to be here.
Great. So we are going to, with the magic of Zoom, we are going to watch the video. Here we go. So this is when I would say, grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us. Hi, I'm Dr. Ruth Anderson with Enlightened World Network. This is an episode of Enlightened Women. Just grab a cup of coffee, whatever you'd like to drink, make yourself comfortable and join us. Enlightened Women is a show about women who are living lives, walking in alignment with their soul's calling. In these episodes, we not only talk about what these enlightened women are up to, but what are their latest learnings as a spiritual being having a physical experience. Today, I am delighted to bring you Deb Goldberg. She's a spiritual teacher, an author, and a podcast host with Angel Heart Radio. So Deb, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here, Ruth.
Thank you, Deb. So let me share with folks how we ever became acquainted, because I think this happens frequently. I have been working with Sherry Myers, and Sherry Myers has a podcast called How to Connect with Angels. And I have been listening to all of those and posting them on Enlightened World Network. When I listened to the podcast by Deb Goldberg, I thought, I have got to look her up, because Deb and I have similar paths as far as direct communication and conversation with the spiritual divinity. And it just stood out to me so strongly that Deb was somebody I could connect with who could really understand this crazy life of walking with spirit that I've led. And so I reached out to Deb, and she was so gracious and reached immediately back out. And since then, she's really become somebody I can trust and someone I can ask questions of. So Deb, you've just been an absolute delight for me to find. Do you mind taking a minute and sharing with folks the big aha that led to your awakening?
It was about 4.5 years ago. I was having some family issues with my son and his wife. And I thought to myself, for the first time, what am I doing that is creating my pain? It completely opened up a door in a way that I never opened before, because it's so easy to just blame other people for whatever's going on in our lives, or that they've created pain for us. And so I started really looking at myself and saying, what am I doing that's creating these problems? Because I don't want to have problems with my family. I love them. And that led me to Margaret Paul, Dr. Margaret Paul. And she's awesome. She has a website called Inner Bonding. And I started to read an article that she wrote. And I said, I'm going to go to one of her workshops. And I went to the workshop. She read a meditation. Now, I've been a counselor for 18 years by then. And I never really did meditation before. I did deep breathing and relaxation, but not meditation. So this was the first time I meditated. And the meditation was to bring in your spiritual guide. During this meditation, in comes Jesus. I didn't know it was Jesus. He was not dressed as we've known Jesus to be dressed from pictures. And I'm Jewish. So the whole thing was just very different for me. I've never experienced anything like this. It was almost like a movie started playing in my head, just opening up to consciousness and visualizing Jesus and myself sitting at a pool, because that was my happy place. We weren't speaking. We were just sitting together. And I said, well, I don't know who this is, but it feels really, really good to sit with him. I knew it was something spiritual going on, but aside from that, I had no idea. Eventually, the whole vision changed, and I was laying in a raft in the pool, and Jesus got into the water, and all of a sudden, my arms just filled up in this raft with all different or wounded knees. He took my arms and put them around all of these, these younger parts of me. And I understood that I needed a lot of healing. I had a lot of abuse in my background. It was just so overwhelming. I felt completely blessed. I didn't know what was happening, but I know it felt good, and I felt love like I had never, ever felt before. I went home and kept practicing this meditation, and I was wondering, why don't we ever speak? Like, we just sit here with each other, and it just feels good. And I heard, just say hello. And I said, okay. I said, hi. And he said, hi. And the conversations began.
So you hear and see Christ.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for your Jewish family members, that all of a sudden you are having conversations with Christ?
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, it took me a long time just to even acknowledge it was Jesus, because I had no reference of this other than understanding Christianity, who Jesus is. My inner child kept telling me, it's Jesus. It is Jesus. And I was like, okay. And I started, to just take that in. I talked to my family about it, and they think I went off the deep end. they didn't understand how I could hear or see. And, I also see and talk to God and angels, and maybe I became a joke in a little way of like, that's all just crazy Aunt Deb, or they just didn't understand. They haven't been awakened yet. And it was interesting. It didn't feel good because, when you are awakened, you want to share. You want to tell people. It's so exciting. It's so overwhelming. It's so loving. And you want everybody to know that that's what's inside of them. But it was not a good response. I've, brought my books to my mom, and, I'll talk to her. And, she says things like, well, all that matters is that you're happy. And if you're happy, that's all that matters.
Sort of discounting.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
So when I first shared my first book with my father, I really hadn't shared much with him. So you were really very brave for bringing your family into your circle, because I was really hesitant to do that. Mm-hmm. But my father was dying of mesothelioma, and I knew before he died, I needed to share this side of me. Otherwise, I knew I would have great regrets. And I showed him my book, and his main issue was, I hope you'll be safe, because he knows of other people who have been traumatized, bullied, for sharing, being able to hear and see spirit. So that was his main concern. And then the next thing he did was tell me the times that he has experienced spirit, how spirit really led him in his career path over the last 30 years, and how he would go to sleep at night thinking of a problem and wake up with the answer, and he knew it was divinely guided. So I had waited all of those adult years to share with him, and he never would have told me had I not taken the risk. Mm-hmm. So thank goodness I took the risk, because on his deathbed, it was the most beautiful conversation we could have had that never would have happened had I not shared my ability to be intuitive with him.
Mm-hmm. That is a beautiful, beautiful story. How nice to get validation and recognition, and that is something that the two of you could have shared before he left. That I'm so glad you said something.
So, but I'm still hesitant to tell some of the people that are closest to me. I've written 3 books now. My husband's only read the first one. Uh-huh. And I'm okay with that. And apparently he is too. He's just not ready to go there, and I respect that. Right. And this conversation in itself is so awesome for women that are walking through their spiritual journey, because we do deal with this with our friends and our family members. This is part of the journey, is people not always embracing what you're telling them. They don't understand. I know, actually, I just met with one of my girlfriends, and she was telling me when I first woke, having such trouble explaining to her what was happening to me, that she couldn't understand me either, because I was so confused. I always prayed to God. I always believed in God, but I believed in God in a different way than I do now. I had not been in the spiritual world before. So it was like, bam, it was like lightning, just a jolt that woke me up and said, hey, this is part of my problem. Was I didn't even know how to talk about. I didn't know how to have the talk, what was happening within me. And I didn't share with my mom and the rest of the family until my books came out and they were published, because I figured, well, if they read this, I want to tell them about it before they just
read it, if they even should read it, right? Because none of them, I think, have read it. But I felt, well, it's time for me to come clean, to come out of the spiritual closet.
I had one family member that couldn't handle it, and I knew she would not be able to handle it. So I was not going to give her my book. But somehow one of my family members gave her the book. And it was really unfortunate because I knew she couldn't do it and I was right. And when I saw her next, she came up to me. She took both of my hands in her hands and she said, I received your book. And she said, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. And I said, I know that this is not in alignment with your beliefs. And I wasn't going to share it with you. And it took a year for her to be able to embrace me again. And what's so interesting to me, Debbie, is that she and I worship the same God. It's just so weird to me that she would get caught up. That was really the only fallout that I've had from coming out of the closet, as you say.
Yeah. I know that some people I just won't talk to them for the same reason that you had. So that was lucky that it was only one, and that, we do have intuition. We know who's gonna maybe receive it. But I'll tell you what, I have opened up to other people not really knowing. And it really opened up dialogue for us to have a conversation. And then I realized that their thinking isn't that far off from mine. So sometimes I get really surprised. And what was interesting, what you're just saying about this one relative, is that my mom will tell me that she still talks to her parents who have passed on, and that a child that she lost after birth. And I'm like, well, if you are doing that, it's not that far from what I'm explaining to you that you can do. And my sister as well. My sister feels things at times, but not crossing over in the sense of saying, well, there is direct communication with the divine.
They are okay having communication with somebody who's passed, but when it comes to, oh, you think you're talking to God, is that like the divider for what's acceptable and what's not?
I think so with a lot of people. I once, when I was counseling people, when I was doing therapy work, I had said to somebody that I talked to God because I started bringing spiritual work into my counseling. And this man said, well, who the hell do you think you are? I'm no different than you, I told him. Everybody can do this. When you say that you talk to God or Jesus or angels, it like puts you in a whole nother level. And people don't know how to relate to that.
I think it's not the fact that you talk to them. I think it's the fact that you can hear them in turn. Because I think a lot of people will talk to, but don't stop to listen.
I totally agree. And people don't realize that they're being spoken to all the time, that they are not walking by themselves by any means, and that there's constant flow of conversation if you allow it. But people get scared. Because when I started thinking about what was going on in me, I'm like, what? Like I'm a counselor. Most people would say I'm psychotic if I'm talking into the spirit world. But I knew darn well what I was seeing and what I was hearing and what I was feeling. The feeling. You cannot feel anything like that in this earthly world. And when you're hearing God's voice. You just know it.
Right. I completely agree with what you're saying. One of the fascinating stories to me is you ended up with your home situation living by yourself for a few weeks. And during those couple of weeks, you received a major download of information. And tell our listeners what you did with that information and how you received it.
We had moved to Florida, January 2016. So this was maybe a year and a half at the most after I had woken up. And right before I left Pennsylvania, I kept thinking, I feel like I'm going to write books, but I didn't know where it was coming from. And I had to be by myself for 6 weeks in Florida. And my husband was finishing up selling our home in Pennsylvania. And Jesus just said to me, go get your journal. We're going to write. And I said, write what? I don't know how to write. I've never written a book before. I've never been good at English. My grammar is awful. And he said, don't worry, I'm just going to talk and you're going to write down what I say. Over a 6-week period, it was 2 weeks per book. He gave me 3 books. I'll tell you what, I would fall asleep over and over again while he was dictating to me because I felt like so much knowledge was coming through, stuff I didn't understand, and it was like so much light coming in. I was exhausted, but I did what he asked me to. I wrote everything down. I got 3 books. He said they were supposed to be a series. He was very specific. He told me when he wanted them published, the dates of when they had to be published. And I, of course, needed to do editing because when I hear it's not coming out edited, it has to be edited because it's almost like a flow of consciousness. I asked Jesus, what should I do? And he said, well, Brian's going to edit for you. And I said, well, I don't think he's going to like that. In fact, he wanted him to type the books from my journal into Word. And I said, you know, I'm a much faster typer. He said, no, I want Brian to do it. And I really think that was Jesus's way of getting Brian to hear all the knowledge that I had been given. Once Brian came back after the 6 weeks, Archangel Gabriel gave me a 4th book, which I haven't put out yet. It's about intuition. And then 2 other books came about, one a duality and another book which is going to be called The Gospel of Jesus, where he's just talking about his life and what's going on here with all of us.
So I similarly, I've learned so much through meditation as well. That's when Archangel Michael or Archangel Gabriel would show up and literally like fly me off places and teach me things. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was told the first time, write all of this down. And so I started journaling, and then I heard, so write an article. I thought, oh, okay. So I wrote an article, and then I heard, so now create a book. I said, I don't mind writing it. I said, but I don't know how to publish it. I don't know anything about that. So if you want me to publish something, you need to drop the people in my lab to do that, which of course they did. And then a year or so later, I heard, write another book. Well, of course, I'd been keeping daily notes from meditation. So I started pulling it all together to write a 2nd book. And I heard, you're not writing 1 book, you're writing 2, and think of it as twins. But one needs to be written first. And they said, no, think of it as twins, that you're incubating both of them at the same time. And I was given a published date, and they sort of came together into the world at the same time. And I was given the symbol, the yin yang symbol, where they both could stand by themselves, but there's such fluidity between the 2. So that's what I did. So I understand exactly what you're talking about in this. And it's just so fun for me to speak to somebody else who has lived through that same kind of downpour of information, and then what to do with it and when to do it by. So
Yeah.
great fun.
It is great fun. And I'm just so excited just listening to you, because it's like you're speaking my story too. It is not much different. And it is exciting to find other people that have had a similar journey in their awakening and the messages that they're receiving. And I think our calling, our purpose is very, very similar. Is about waking people up and giving them a divine experience by leading them, to their divinity. It's awesome, because when you first wake up, a lot of times you feel by yourself, you're alone, and because your friends or family don't understand what you're going through, because you don't understand what you're going through, and so you feel very isolated. And it's important to reach out and know that there's so many people across the whole world who have awoken and that have experienced many of the same things or different, but they're awake and they can talk with you, and they start developing a community to help.
Right. For me, it was really interesting because I was kept isolated for about 3 years. Now, of course, I still had friends and I still had family, but really there was nobody that I could really talk to. And I wanted a mentor so bad. And I just kept being reminded that nobody here has experienced exactly what I've experienced. So really the only mentor for me was Archangel Michael, or a Divine Mother, or Archangel Raphael, or a Gabrielle. They were my mentors. And I understand now why that was the case, but boy, were there some lonely times.
Oh yeah. And it's really something to work through, because we can look at it and saying is that you're awake, that you're not alone spiritually, that you can't be alone. There's just no such thing. But in this experience of humanity, we do feel lonely. We do want to talk to people about what's going on with us, and we want to share things and have relationships where we can talk about all of this awesome stuff that's happening. So I totally agree. I probably couldn't talk to anyone for about a year. And what happened to me is I used to love watching Barbara DeAngelis in the 90s. Like I used to see her on TV, and I would think, I want to be just like her. She was a psychologist. And I guess I didn't know what happened to her. I lost track of her. And then all of a sudden she comes across my computer like a year after I had woken up, and I see she's a spiritual guru. And like she completely transformed from the 90s into, she calls herself a mystic. And she works with people and helping them wake up and what the process is about. And so when I saw that, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to go to her workshop. And I did. And I signed on to work with her for 16 months. And so I got a whole community of other people that were being nudged to awaken. Everybody was in a different place. Not everybody was connected spiritually in the way that I was, but that's where they were headed. And so it gave me a forum to actually connect with people that were on the path of awakening. And that really, really helped me, because I thought, oh gosh, there's a lot of people out there from all over the world that I wouldn't even know existed. But it is really lonely at first, and it is kind of just so odd to even think about that when you're just filled with so much love and you're filled with all of this help, support inside of you. You're still longing for support outside of you.
I wanted somebody so badly to be able to say, this is where you've been and this is where you're going. Nobody can tell me where I'm going.
Right? Nobody can tell us where we're going. I've learned that, because I think when I woke up, I started becoming like a junkie on the computer, trying to understand what was happening within me and, what this experience is about. And, and then there's people that do all kinds of stuff like readings and mediums and whatever. And I started to realize that when I engaged those people, because I wanted to know, they can't tell me my life path. They can tell me a snippet of something, but they cannot tell me anything else. And that typically what they told me, I really kind of knew intuitively, but I was not listening to myself.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One of the most fun things for me about this journey, and it really is fun for me, is sometimes I will get just like an option, like go to this workshop email or something, and I will always say, Archangel Michael, are you here? And when I get the yes, then I say, should I go do this thing? Mm-hmm. And occasionally it's like, yes. And it's like, really? I should do this? Yes. And it's like, okay, fine. So every time that has happened and I have said, okay, fine, whatever, there's a reason you're telling me this. I have been able to go and understand why I'm supposed to be there. Mm-hmm. And some of the people that I have connected with the most that truly feel like a soul sister on a similar life path have been from these situations where Archangel Michael said, you really need to go to that. Mm-hmm. And I just blindly say, okay, I'm packing my bag or I'm making that reservation and I'm just going to go do it.
That's awesome. That is really awesome. That's such an important point too, is to listen to what you're being told and guided to do. Because that's part of the battle of ego getting in the way, fear getting in the way, or saying, like, I don't have the money to do this, or why do I really need to go? I know there's a part of me that's very resistant and gets into kind of battles spiritually. I know better, and I know that's ego. And some of the things that you're asked to do just don't make any sense at all. But there's a reason why we're being asked to do these things. So it's awesome that you listen and you follow through, and then you get the benefit of something.
Right. And I really do believe that next steps may not have happened had I not done that particular thing. Had I not listened and said, you got it, I'm going. Mm-hmm. I think the more we listen and the more we follow the guidance that we're given, the more guidance they actually give us.
Yes. There's, I think, a building of trust within you, within each of us, that if we keep following through, even though it makes no sense, you are right, that more guidance, then you can get bigger stuff. You could get more guidance. You could get, I don't know if you would call it bigger stuff, but you get much more responsibility, if that makes sense. You get more responsibility, whether that's information or whatever it might be. And it is a real journey of trust. This whole thing is having faith and believing what you're told. And even if you're second guessing it, to do it anyway.
I love that you keep learning on a day-to-day basis. And I think really all of us do, whether we're aware of it or not. I guess for the last 5 years, I've just thought that my role, my calling is to share the information that I've been given. And I love doing that, and I do it in several different ways. There are times when spirit gets quiet. It's tricky for me sometimes because I'm thinking, okay, where's the message? What is it that you want me to put out into the world? And when there's no message there, I've gone through phases of questioning gosh, well, did I just make all of that up in my mind in the first place? Or angry, like, what are you doing? You're cutting me off? What is that? And I have learned when spirit is quiet, that that's my time to stop putting out into the world, but to turn inward and be fed and process information. And I find that when I can finally relax and do that, that maybe in a week or so, then they start giving me more information to put out there. And so for me personally right now, I'm on a bit of a hiatus where I still go into meditation every morning. I still sit at the foot of God and wait to hear. And I do hear a little bit, but it's not the hour and a half of download. It kind of goes quiet. And then I'll ask, do you have anything else for me today? And I hear no. And it's like, okay, but go finish what's on your plate. Go finish what's on your desk. And when that's all done, then we'll move forward. So that's been tricky for me.
Yeah.
But I'm getting much better with it.
Yeah. It is a weird feeling when you're used to in meditation just keep getting these downloads and volumes of information, just volume, plethora. Like I couldn't remember everything I was taught. I have everything in journals because I can't remember everything. And then to go through a dry phase of what is going on. I completely understand. Actually, that's where I am right now too. And so I think it's good that people know that this happens. And Jesus explained it to me is that there's seasons for learning and there's seasons for integrating. And so we would be in an integration process of really taking in what we've learned and applying it, actually using it every single day in our life so that we are really connecting with the information given. So I can go through periods of months like that. And then my ego, I call it the spiritual ego, starts going, I'm not connected and something's wrong and I'm cut off the same way that you're saying. And these are all normal things that happen and it's part of the process. And I've also learned that it is also helping me grow my trust and faith and belief in what I have already been told and know that regardless of what I'm feeling, nothing's changed. Nothing has changed, but it is it's going and actually doing the work inside yourself, internalizing it all. And it takes time. Like I have not internalized everything I have learned. I'm working on it. The growing never stops. It will continue forever. And you are constantly learning about yourself, about life, about spirit. So that's not, you don't get to an end point. You don't say, okay, I got it all. I know everything I need to know and I'm all good. And that's it. And I guess that's another point too, that is understanding our own perfection and our worth right now and wherever you are, and not ever doubting that, which of course we do, but you can't do anything or be anything else that's going to give you any more worth or love than you already are right now. That each one of us is so divinely perfect. And I believe that's the crux of this whole journey, is accepting your own wholeness and perfection as you are, because that's the way we all were created. And it is the ego that keeps telling you you're not good enough, you're not here yet, you got, I see all this business stuff all the time. Oh, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You should be here. And there's no truth to that. You are totally being guided. Your life is already planned out, which is hard for a lot of people. Your life has already been planned out. And as long as you keep staying aligned, and I do that through meditation and prayer, staying aligned keeps leading you to the next place that you need to go on divine time, not earth time.
Right, that old divine timing piece. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
I absolutely love talking to you. And I know that, our viewers are going to want to reach out and learn more about you. So how can they access your books and how can they contact you?
You can find my books on Amazon under A Divinely Ordered Life. And all 3 books will show up on there. It's Are You Ready to Listen? God, and God's Covenant, and the Scripture of Heaven. There's a series for beginners called Creating a Life Worth Living, which is also on Amazon. And you can find me on debbiengoldberg.com. My email address is deb.goldberg@verizon.net. And so I welcome you to reach out. I would love to hear from anyone that would like to chat.
Oh, Debbie, thank you so much for being with us here. I greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. It's really been lovely getting to know you, and feel like a soul sister. We are in the same place in what we're doing, and I'm just really grateful that you did reach out to me, and that I get to know you and all the wonderful things that you're doing out in the world.
Thank you, Deb.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Wow, Deb Goldberg, that was so amazing. And I, of course, because I edited, I have watched this so many times and I'm still taking notes. So it just feels like your one video by itself is like a week's worth of stuff to unpack. There was a lot in that video.
It was a lot. I agree with you. There was an awful lot in that video. You're such a great interviewer because you pulled all of that stuff out of me. And the conversation just flows so very naturally. And it's important for me to let people know that there's no outline out there of how this works, of when you wake up or walking this path. There's no outline of what you follow, and for each of us it's going to be different, and so we're going to just have so many different experiences as we go along, and it's okay if you feel uncomfortable, and it's okay if you don't understand what's going on and being confused and not always having the clarity that you think you should have. So I think, yeah, those are all very, very important things, the things that I still have to work on myself.
Yeah. And you made some fascinating points. One of the things that I want to say to our folks, Terry, why don't you unmute yourself so you can join in here if you don't mind. I don't know if we've got folks on live with us. Terry, do we have folks that you can see on live? Because I'm not actually.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We've been carrying on a conversation.
Lovely. Welcome to anybody and everybody who's with us. And this, of course, the recording, folks can watch it as well. But I want to be really clear. Deb and Terry and the other 32 speakers, we're all in different places on our journey. And some of these folks, Terry's been seeing angels since she was just a tiny little girl, right? And other folks, it sort of didn't kick in until later. But nobody's better. There is no hierarchy here. Everybody's just on their own spiritual journey, and it's all good. There's no, gosh, I need to get where Deb is, or I need to be as, wizened as Terry is. That's not how it works. We're all where we are in our journeys because that's where we're supposed to be on our journeys. And it's all good. It's all perfect.
It is divinely perfect.
It is divinely perfect.
Mhm.
Yes.
It is. And it's important because one of the things that our ego will do is compare ourselves to other people or believe that we're not good enough because we're not like this other person or that other person. And those are all things that I have had to grow in my confidence in myself. And it doesn't mean that at times I still don't get lose confidence, but I know what I've been taught, and I know that each one of us, as you're saying, is divinely perfect. And where we are, it's like looking at, you're here with your own mission, and it has absolutely nothing to do with anybody else. And so it doesn't matter what anybody else is doing. You're here for your own growth, and there's a plan for you. There is an individualized plan for you, and it's not going to look like anybody else's.
Sorry, my daughter just joined us for a minute there. But I will share, I won't lose it. So what she just brought to me, I know she doesn't know how divinely guided this was. She just brought to me, she never comes down to talk to me, by the way, while I'm doing things. She walked in, and what she has here is a handwritten something that my best friend, who started my spiritual journey, who died 6 years ago, hand wrote for my daughter. And she just brought it in. So, and I'm going to cry.
Oh my gosh.
We're talking about everybody's, thank you, Sylvia. That's so sweet. We're talking about everybody's private journey. And there's something that triggered it for every single person. Whether it was that they were born to be here calling in divine light, or whether it was they weren't supposed to kind of become awake until later. But for so many of us, there was a person that was pivotal in that happening. And Sylvia, frankly, is mine. So if you think about it, maybe sometime today or tomorrow, just think about who was that pivotal person or persons who really made a spark, really made a difference in your personal journey. And just give a little thanks, because your life is so completely different now because of that. So that's crazy. That's actually really cool and really crazy that she just brought that in. So
yeah. Yeah, because you know that she's watching. And I think this is a really good and another good thing to remember is that even though we are on our own individual journeys, we are one collective consciousness, and we are always connected to this, to whoever's you want to call it, this realm or divine realm. It's all the same realm. It is we're always connected to everybody. We can't be separated from each other. It's our bodies that make us look separated from each other. And so Sylvia is right here with us. It's just so beautiful how spirit gets somebody else to interact, to let you know, like your daughter, that hey, we're here and we see, and we're with you, and we're doing this together. It is just so beautiful. this happens all the time too, but we don't always recognize it.
That's so true. The angels, they say us humans love confirmations and we love our signs. And that was most definitely a sign for you, Ruth. And yeah, I agree. We're all so connected. And that connection doesn't end when these physical bodies end. We will remain connected forever.
Right. Exactly right. Hey, Terry, can you share with us, has anybody asked any questions in the chat? Is there anything they'd like Deb to address or talk about?
We had one earlier from Anaya, and I know, Deb, you typed in an answer. Would you like to go ahead and address that?
Yeah, Anaya had asked about my beginning of how I coped with the ego. And what I had said is that in the beginning, I did not understand that the ego, even though I think Jesus was trying to help me understand, and my higher part of myself was trying to help me understand that the ego is along for this ride for us to have an experience of contrast, and I hated my ego. I was so annoyed and irritated by my ego. And I wanted to get rid of it, even if I had to kill it somehow. I mean, this is how angry I was because I felt like it was ruining my life. And I was like having victim consciousness with the ego. So it took me time to understand that orchestrated for this this journey, and that it's not going anywhere, and I had to learn how to accept it, if you want to say love it, it's integrated as part of me for this journey, and just not listen to it, to kind of just ignore it, not feed it arguments with it, because I would also argue with it all the time, and all that did is create more energetic issues within inside myself, with more frustration and irritation. And so, yeah, that was a whole process. And I can't say that now and then my ego still will reach out, get me.
That's a great question.
Yes, it certainly was. And we have Linda Dirks. It's not a question, but she made the comment, wonderful messages, quote, "You are being spoken to all the time. You are not walking alone." And I love that as well. And I try to always remember that, when sometimes it feels like it's a dark place, but those are the times when they're really lifting us up and we're never alone. And once we can really grasp that, we can go through any fire. We can handle whatever comes our way. So great point, Deb. Thank you for that.
One of the things that we talked about was that desire for a mentor or someone that you can talk to that can understand what you're going through. And Deb, you had also talked about your family thinking you were a little crazy. There's crazy Aunt Deb. And I think that those two things tend to keep us small. If I don't have anybody I can talk to who understands, and the people that I'd want to be able to tell me I'm crazy, boy, that is a recipe for staying small. So I'm really hoping that this group right here, through this Facebook group, through connections that people might make with each other, I really hope, and goosebumps on this, guys, I really hope that we can stand there for each other and say, you are so not crazy. That's exactly what I experienced. And just embrace it, just accept it and embrace it. And you are hearing spirit. You are seeing spirit. And it's good. So I hope we can be that for each other.
Yeah. I think that's beautiful because I think as you know, even as we keep going higher, you're going to experience different things, and you're not always sure what it is going on. Like we had talked in the interview about, all of a sudden you're not hearing as much information as you would normally hear, and so I think that these things just occur, and to have this community to keep lifting each other up and knowing that what you're going through is completely normal, and that there's all each other to reach out to, when you have questions, because I certainly don't have all the answers. And most of the times, sometimes I start to think that I don't know anything because because you keep finding things out that are not true. So I think that it's a great community to do those things. And so I really appreciate you bringing us together, and building a community for ourselves and for everybody else out there. It is such a beautiful gesture, divinely inspired. I did want to share a story with you before we go. And I just feel really moved to tell this story. That time when I was by myself for 6 weeks and I received that download of the 3 books. What had happened is, I did a lot of trauma work, because I was by myself. And what happened one night is I was staying in somebody else's house that I'd never been in before. I was by myself, and I had gone through trauma, growing up, and uh, from a family member. And so what happened was is that I had always known that I was afraid of the dark. And I didn't like sleeping by myself. So my husband wasn't around, and just safe. And so one night, while I'm in this strange house by myself, and it's, dark, and I don't really know the house well, and the noises, and part of me, I like sat up in bed and I turned on the lights, and I just could not shut my eyes. And it was like this 15-year-old part of me, this 15-year-old little teenager who I experienced things at that time, was like, eyes were like this, just scared out of my mind. But what had happened is, this is the first time that I was witnessing what was happening in myself and not going through the trauma, the PTSD. And why I'm telling you this story is because I want people to know about the love that is so there for all of us, that God, Jesus, the goddess, which I see God as both extreme, feminine and masculine, John the Baptist, slept with me for night after night after night, talking me through the trauma and healing what I had gone through. Slept with me, holding me. Now, I know you've told people that I can see and feel and know, and to have that experience that you can be healed from the inside out, with that level of divine love, of wanting to help you process and really understand, what had happened and who you are, and to let go of all of these things that we hold on to, all this victim stuff that is happening. People to know that this is the type of love that is there for you. It's not just guidance to learn things or to bring you into your divine calling. It is healing. Like, I can't even describe the healing of the love and the grace and the patience, that even if you can't see them, they are holding you all of the time. And it's magnificent and it's a miracle.
That's so beautiful, Deb. Thank you. Thank you for your vulnerability in sharing that. That's
Well,
so beautiful. So I can just imagine some folks that are watching this saying, but how do I do that? How do I do that? How do I know that that's who I'm with? And how do I ask them in? And how do I do that? And I'm not sure we've got the time to actually have the answer here, but here's what I'm wondering. I'm wondering if there isn't something just on the cusp here, just even like a call-in thing with Deb as a group or something for just like an hour during the scope of this 31-day summit, that if folks want to learn more about what you were just talking about, that they could set up a time with you in a group to do that. And I would be honored to participate in that and support you in whatever way of pulling that together. What do you think about that?
that's awesome. That is beautiful. I think that's what we're here to do, is help people connect and get to whatever they need to, whatever healing, guidance, and to be funneled through all of that love that is waiting there for them to tap into. It is that's why we're here, is to help each other and move through these experiences that we have that can be so traumatizing, that, you know, not having divine intervention is it's like it is feeling lost. You feel totally lost. So I am willing to do that for whoever is interested. If they want to connect, that's what I do, is I help people connect to the spirit that they feel comfortable with, so that they can start having their own conversations and let that spirit guide them.
Perfect. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Terry, we're going to wrap up here. Is there any last comments from the group that you want to make sure that Deb and I are aware of?
I have a comment from Marietta Stoner, and she says, great discussion, gals. Everything is working perfectly according to God's incredible divine plan. I know and trust that each day this plan is slowly being revealed to me. I choose to think and act in the most positive way I possibly can at all times for my highest good and the highest good of all. I think that's a wonderful way to end this.
That is beautiful. Well, I want to thank all of you for being here. Deb, Terry, everybody who's online, and everybody who's going to watch this later. Thank you so much for being with us. And with that, I'm going to say good night and God bless.
Good night.
Good night. Namaste.